Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of And You Think You Got Problems. I am
We
Ron
think you
Brooks.
got problems.
That's right.
I am Mike Iridori.
I'm Jeff Keller.
And today we have a fantastic guest, Nico Dinisi. Nico, thank you very much for coming on our show today.
Thank you for having me, Ron. And it's Nico Dinisi, but believe me, the last name is weird. It does sound like Dasani.
I appreciate and I thank you and I apologize for that. So
no, it's okay.
You know, as we were mentioning before, you know, we like to bring people on that are different parts of a minority group, discuss your life journey, where you're at, and at the end, if you think you have any problems that we can help you solve as comedians, we're more than welcome to help you out. So you know, we were just talking about your journey. I know you were you're a professional bodybuilder. Why don't you give everybody who's listening a little brief history about who you are and where you're at?
All right. So in 2014, I came out as bisexual. And then shortly after, I stopped dating women because I was intimidated by them. And I just thought I was doomed to be with men for the rest of my life. So I just kept dating men. I dated a bodybuilder. He got me into bodybuilding. He got me on steroids. I had a lot of fun. Bodybuilding was great. And I will tell you what, whatever sexuality you are before you get on a drug like that, it can sometimes change it. So I actually realized that was the most bisexual I've ever been in my life, is being on steroids. Then I got off steroids and I realized, and after my boyfriend and I broke up, I realized like I was kind of lying to myself, saying that I don't like saying that I like guys pretty much. I realized that I was just, I'm a victim of what they call compulsory heterosexuality. It happens to a lot of lesbians where they stay in the closet longer and they date men longer because society basically teaches them that that's what makes you the most desirable as a person or as a woman, and that your identity is like a big part of being a woman is about being attractive to men. So once I let go of that and I realized I was gay in 2018, I felt really insecure about how masculine I was. And so I thought, you know what, instead of feeling insecure about it, let me just embrace it. Maybe I should just transition. I've been on steroids before. It wasn't that bad. I don't need these titties. I don't need people to call me she, her. I don't need to be pretty anymore. I like when people call me handsome. I'm tall. Like I could be a male actor. Like I started thinking like that. I started thinking like, how would my life improve if I became a man, which is like kind of internally misogynistic. And anyway, I started socially transitioning, which means I didn't take any drugs. I didn't get any medical work done. I just started dressing like a man. I got rid of all my girls' clothes. This is all in 2018 I did this. And this is right after saying I'm a lesbian, right? So I go from saying I'm a lesbian to immediately being like, oh no, maybe I'm a man. And I started doing that, started trying to be a trans masculine person or a trans man. And I realized it just didn't make sense for me. I still felt like a woman. Then I thought, well, what about non-binary? Because then I don't have to talk about it. Then I started being non-binary or whatever, and it didn't work for me either because people calling me they, them, tripping over themselves to get it right was annoying for me because I didn't care. And then I identified as bigender, and that was most of 2019. I identified as bigender. And then at the end of, maybe towards the end, I just decided that I'm cisgender. I'm still cisgender. I've never not felt like a woman. Yes, I've felt very masculine. It's made me really consider what it means to be a man versus what it means to be a woman versus what it means to be masculine and feminine. I think that, yes, I like passing as male. I like when people think I'm a guy, but the fact that I would even word it that way indicates that I definitely feel like a woman. And I started kind of reading more and talking more I started reading more about butch history and talking to butches. And I realized that my experience as a butch lesbian is actually very common. A lot of butch lesbians think that they're trans at first. And then they and then they settle on, no, I just like to dress like a dude. And I am still a girl, and I still have, a lot of butch lesbians do embrace their feminine side. They just don't do it the way society says you're supposed to do it. And I've felt very comfortable ever since I kind of just embraced myself as a butch lesbian instead of trying to like make everybody else happy. Because people would corner me and say, you're not really a woman. You're not really a woman. Why are you pretending to be a woman? And that type of shit scared me and made me think, well, at least if I'm on testosterone, I'll be strong and nobody will be able to hurt me. But that was just all just like fear. And I decided I don't want to live fear based. My life hasn't been that hard as a butch cis lesbian, really. It's just more people get embarrassed for me.
So, two questions. I know you were saying that and I've seen your pictures. Your body's amazing. You're a professional bodybuilder. How do you think? One, the steroids, and two, societal toxic masculinity, kind of influenced how you have gone through this journey of self-discovery and self-love?
Oh yeah. So when I got into bodybuilding, it was because I wanted abs. That was all I wanted. And then I realized, no, I want to be muscular, and I couldn't help it. It's like, it's interesting because the world was telling me that wasn't beautiful. The world kept telling me, no, you can only have this much muscle. If you have this much muscle, now you're a man, and that's not attractive. So yeah, being a female bodybuilder, unfortunately, I never became a professional. I never became a pro because it was actually just way too hard. I was an amateur bodybuilder. I did make it to the national level, which is pretty cool. If you're if you compete in NPC, anybody you know who competes in NPC knows what I'm talking about. I just yeah, so I think what happened for me was, at first it was kind of horrifying when like my body started to change. I took testosterone, and it makes I took primobolan, equipoise, they call it Deca, but I always forget what it's, decabolin, and I took Anavar. These are 4 different steroids. Like, they're medical. A lot of people
Anabolic.
use them for. Yes, they're anabolic. Yeah, they're all anabolic. They help you build muscle, and they help you not lose muscle, and they help you. Some of them help you with. You have the endurance. Like, so for instance, primobolan. Arnold used to use that. That used to be his favorite steroid, and what it does is it keeps you from putting on fat. It's not a fat burner, but you can do a lot of cardio without worrying about catabolizing muscle. So you don't lose muscle.
Okay.
And so really, like, I guess for me at first, I had no care about the misogyny that was going on. I just felt like, oh, that's what else new? We're in a patriarchy. Of course, they're going to ask us to be super feminine and wear makeup and have our hair long. And of course, they're going to put us in these positions. But like, I went in just thinking, I want to be a badass. I don't care what they think. I just want to be muscular. And then people would say, you look like a man. They call me tranny. They call me whatever. They fuck the comedians in my hometown fucking try to call me names and shit. And fucking try to like.
Where are you from originally?
Pomona.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, nothing big. It's like, I don't care. It's like people think it's funny at first, and maybe it would have been funny to me because maybe it wasn't funny to me at the time, because at the time I didn't understand why a cisgender woman can't be muscular. And who cares if she takes testosterone to do it? Who fucking gives a shit? And it's like, and all these cisgender, when I say cisgender, that means woman, identifies a woman, born woman. So just to clear that out of the way. Mm-hmm. I hated this idea that if you look the way you do, I'm going to assume you're transgender. And if you are transgender, I'm going to bully you and make you feel like less of a woman. Mm-hmm. And that was how I kind of started to empathize with trans women. Of course, I'll never know what it's like to be a trans woman, but I do know what it's like to be bullied for not conforming to a gender norm. And but at the same time, I didn't give a shit. I wanted to be muscular. I wanted to be ripped. I kept going. And I only quit because my health was declining. It was bad for my kidneys, and it was bad for my mental health because I already had body dysmorphia. So imagine you have body dysmorphia. You don't really see yourself accurately. You get last place at the Nationals in New York. And then and you spent $3,000 to go. It's actually New Jersey. And then, you meet your heroes and they don't give a shit about you. And then it's like, and you go home and you're just like, okay, I've lost $3,000. I got dead last at Nationals. There's no good pictures of me online. And I just fucking I was like, why am I doing this? I feel miserable. So I quit bodybuilding to focus on comedy full on. because I also realized that all the time I was spending training could have been time I spent at the open mics. And if I just work out to maintain my health, I'd be happier. So I still look good, but I'm just skinnier now.
You look fantastic. You look
Thank
absolutely
you.
fantastic.
Aw, thank you.
Absolutely. No, I you know, when we first met, I was always intrigued because you have such a you have such a great intellect, and you know, you always have really interesting perspectives on social issues. So it's really interesting for me to be able to hear this, you know, this other side of you. When you know, do you like when you're encounter when you said you were talking to some of these butch lesbians about their journey. Yeah, to talk about that experience, was there a sense of coming home? Was there a sense of community that you had with that? You know, what was that like for you emotionally?
What I learned, well, butch lesbians, some of them have never questioned it, or some of them have questioned it and never done anything about it. A lot of them do this, they follow the same pattern I did. I actually started by saying I was gender fluid. And that's usually what they'll say too. It's like, I've talked to butch lesbians on dating apps. I've talked to butch lesbians on Reddit. I've talked to butch lesbians on Facebook mostly. Actually, mostly Facebook's been where I've talked to the most.
Okay.
And what I found out is that, like, being butch is a valid cultural identity. Being
Yeah.
a stud is a valid cultural identity. Studs, that is an act. That's usually, that's women of color who are butch or
Interesting.
masculine presenting.
Okay. I didn't know
I
that. I'm learning something new right now.
I'm so happy to teach you this. It's something that, well, I'm so happy to share this with you because, like, here's the thing. I learned late. Like, I never called myself a stud, but I didn't know until like this year that apparently being a white butch and calling yourself a stud is like a form of cultural appropriation, because that identity is supposed to be for Black women who are masculine, Black lesbians who are masculine presenting. And I guess it's still questionable whether Latinas or, you know, I don't know if Hispanic is okay to say. Some people like that word, some people don't. It depends on where you're from. Brown lesbians, I don't know if they have a separate cultural identity for being masculine, but I've heard them also say stud, and I think that's fair. The way I see it is that stud is not a white identity, so white people shouldn't use it. They should identify as butch if they're a masculine lesbian. However, it's like, I know a lot of white lesbians who've called themselves studs, who their friends who are people of color have called them studs, and it wasn't a big deal. It's just a matter of like honoring history. So I guess historically, we should honor identities and terminology, and like make
Do
sure that we
you
trace it
know?
back to its origin.
Do you know where the term stud came from and how it got associated with butch African American women
They always
or butch
tie it.
lesbians? I guess.
I really should research that. Because what I did is I just kind of felt like I was already not calling myself a stud. So why would I start now that I've heard from multiple accounts, like multiple butch lesbians, stud lesbians, saying this is what this word's supposed to mean. So you got to be respectful and like don't identify that way. You can always be a butch. Like, white butches is totally a thing. I mean, it's very simple, right? I think what it is like butch is like an umbrella term, and I guess if you're a person of color, stud is just your way of like. I like it because it's a way of like identifying your race or your ethnicity inherently, and it kind of like how two-spirit. Have you ever heard of the term two-spirit?
Yeah.
It's like non-binary, but it's reserved for indigenous people. So if
Right.
as a white person, if I said I'm two-spirit, that's messed up because now I'm being like, oh yeah, and also I'm native. But then not even that. That's the thing. The fact that a white person saying that erases the origin of that word. Now people just think, oh, anybody can be two-spirit. It's like, no. It's an indigenous identity. If I, a white person, says I'm two-spirit, I'm a stud or whatever, I'm erasing the cultural significance of those terms because I'm absorbing it with my culture. Because my culture, quote unquote culture, is the majority. It's the ruling majority in America, so it's not it's really not fair to anybody who's trying to express themselves culturally. So in terms of like the actual research, I haven't done it. All I know is that I guess like Black lesbians from like the original, like the Stonewall riots, like that whole thing, like I guess there's leaders that you can like trace back to, or people who were around during that time when that's pretty much when the term I think originated, because back then that's really where we get all of our culture. Like I didn't know any of this shit until I read Stone Butch Blues, which is like not even a historical book. It's like a narrative, but it's from somebody who did the research. But yeah, like I'm not as educated on the history as I should be, I think. But talking to butch lesbians who've been out since the 70s or out since the 80s definitely has helped me shape my worldview.
No, so Nico, the great thing about this is, first of all, thank you for all of that. Mike used to be a bodybuilder. And,
no, I was a power lifter. No, I was a power lifter.
Thank you. Sorry.
Big difference.
Let me. Her and I talked about it. Let me talk to her.
Please, absolutely.
Nico, it's interesting that you're saying everything you're saying, because I knew somebody that took an incredible amount of drugs and was a world champion power lifter, and now they're actually they're becoming a woman. And I talked to my doctor, who's a friend of mine, who's a sports doctor, and he actually said if you take enough drugs, they will actually confuse you. They can actually change your perception of who you are on an internal level, where you could actually, like everything you're saying, it's real. And people don't understand that. And it's interesting because I knew somebody, world champion, won't say his name on here, took a ton of drugs. He was a pharmacist and created his own drugs. Now he's transitioning into a woman. And I'm firmly convinced from what people have told me that it was from the amount of drugs that he took that shaped this new perception. Have you talked to a doctor about taking estrogen to kind of reverse, not so much the way you look, but maybe reverse some of the damage to actually help your body? Because
there's no damage. I don't have any damage.
You damage, so you're okay.
Yeah, you haven't done what I've done, so you don't know what you're talking about. That doctor's right, but he's also kind of wrong. Here's how he's wrong. He cannot decide how a person feels. If you got in a car accident, you don't think that's going to shape your perception of the world? Yeah, of course, nobody wants to get in a car accident. Nobody wants to take too many steroids and have negative effects, right? I don't think a person deciding that they're transgender is a negative effect, because as far as you understand, you don't actually know how that person felt before. In other words, what you're positing is that a transgender person, by being transgender, is damaged already, because you're saying like, okay, testosterone, too many drugs, now she's trans. Before she was a man, that was a mistake. You don't understand. It's very possible that person was trying to compensate for their feelings of being a woman on the inside by taking testosterone to try to be the most manly man possible. And yes, does testosterone mess with your head? It fucking does. It took me 2 years to get over it. But did you see me fucking running into the clinic and getting testosterone right away? No. So I'm sorry, but your friend and I are two different people. So do not try to like project that person's like, I do not have any fucking problem with being masculine. And you know what? If you were a cisgender man, which you are a born male who identifies as a man. If you decided one day to wear nails and get your makeup done, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Now, yeah, if you say that you want to transition to become a woman and you
love that, Nico.
My point is, I should be allowed to look this way. I should be allowed to sound this way. And guess what? I don't need estrogen. You know how fucked up estrogen would be for me? Have you ever had birth control? Birth control raises your estrogen levels and makes you depressed. It makes you bloated. It makes you feel like shit. It makes you fat. No, thank you. I'm not getting on estrogen. In fact, estrogen might be most of my fucking problem in general. The whole reason I got on testosterone was to get buff, not to become a man. And then when I got off testosterone, when I was off for 2 years, during that period, yes, I thought about getting on testosterone again. I thought about becoming a man, but then I didn't. Now I'm happy being a woman.
Right.
And I'm not going to talk to a doctor and create a new problem and be like, hey, doc, did I think I was a man for a year because I took testosterone? The guy would be like, maybe. He wouldn't say, oh, yeah, all transgenders who take testosterone or take a steroid before they transitioned, obviously it only was because, freaking one of my friends told me that I was gay because of testosterone. You know how that makes me feel? Do you know how that erases my identity as a lesbian for you to say that, oh no, you were never really a lesbian, you took testosterone and it made you wrong?
Nico, real quickly, Nico, and thank you very much for sharing that, because I think what a lot of, and what I would like to, a lot of straight people don't understand the struggle and the journey that LGBTQ people have.
You gotta wise up.
Finding themselves in a society, that's in a society that is so heterodominant, and it isn't one size fits all, and everyone has a very colorful emotional palette that
also Mike
is
needs
not
to understand
dictated.
Mike needs to understand that he's talking about a man, a biological male, and I don't like to say this because I'm only saying this because I know that you guys. I know that some people don't understand this.
Right.
Biological.
So I appreciate that.
I'm gonna try to keep this as simple as possible. If a biological male takes testosterone, the natural consequence is not that he's gonna want to become a woman. What might happen though is that as that man gets off testosterone, he should not be getting on estrogen right away. Definitely not. He should wait for his levels to balance out. If he had a good doctor, I'm sorry, I'm going to say she because she now identifies as she, because I'm going to respect that woman who identifies as a woman, who transitioned into a woman. I don't give a shit what she used to be. So this woman, this trans woman, who started taking estrogen after being a male, quote unquote, male bodybuilder, male competitor, whatever, male powerlifter. That's what it was, male powerlifter. If she is on testosterone, if she is on estrogen now, I hope to God that she not waited to decide if she was a woman, because you could be a woman with I was a woman with loads of testosterone in my system. Okay, I identified more as a woman then than when I got off. So think about that. If she decided that she was a woman after getting off all those steroids, that has nothing to do with the steroids. If anything, the steroids proved to her that even on the most testosterone, she could not be a man. And if anything, it showed her that taking hormones isn't that scary. So yeah, let's say that this woman goes on estrogen, transitions into a woman. Maybe she continues to do powerlifting, which, by the way, if you have a fucking problem with a trans woman competing in powerlifting, you can go fuck yourself. Because lots of cisgender women take testosterone. And if she has natural levels of testosterone in her system, who fucking cares? So do I. Even before I took steroids, I had natural levels of testosterone in my body. If she could always change her mind in the future, who fucking cares? Why does anybody fucking care? Why? Is it because you're afraid that there's a possibility that you may be wrong about you may not know what your gender is? Obviously, you know what your gender is, so don't worry about these other people. And no, steroids do not cause people to transition. People decide to transition and they take the drugs doctors give them if they want to. Some people transition and they don't take anything. I know trans women who have the same body they had before they transitioned. They still have a quote unquote, like what you would call a masculine body or like a male body or like a whatever kind of body. So I hate these ideas that people, these conclusions people come to, because I'm very defensive about the fact that, yeah, I was closeted my whole life. That's not my fault. When I came out as a lesbian, people thought, oh, well, you were boy crazy in high school, so it must have been the steroids that turned you gay. You understand that steroids made my sex drive so high, sexuality wasn't even an issue anymore. I didn't care what you were. I would fuck anyone. I didn't give a shit. So now that I'm off everything and I've balanced out, I do know who I am. And yeah, like there's other factors other than anabolic steroids that can change how a person views themselves.
Absolutely.
Right. But let's go with this though. Anabolic steroids are the worst steroids you can take. Okay, anabolic steroids like Dynabol.
They're all anabolic.
Let me, but I'm just saying. Let me just finish. But when you're taking Dynabol, that's fucking hardcore.
I didn't take Dynabol, but I understand.
That's hardcore, and it will mess with
this. Hang on,
But
hang
it
on.
will.
I
Let me
thought
just
this
finish this
podcast
thought.
was
I've
not
been
about.
listening this whole time. Let me just finish this thought. My thought is when you're messing with steroids, it messes with you emotionally and mentally.
Why are you
That's what
see now?
steroids.
See,
But I'm
now here
not
we
saying.
go.
Let
Here
me
we go. I'm
finish.
feeling. I'm feeling
Let
my
me
gender right now.
finish.
Do
You're not
not
even know where I'm
educate
going
me.
with this.
Have you
You
taken
don't
steroids?
even know what I'm
I've
going with
taken
this.
steroids.
This is the
I've taken
problem. You're not
steroids.
going to listen. What I'm saying is this. I'm not saying that it stops you from transition or makes you. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, and you can't deny it, it does mess with people mentally and physically. Well,
No,
mentally. It
I
does.
already know that. I know
Okay.
firsthand.
So don't
So why are
jump
you
on
trying
what
to
I'm going to say.
Oh no no no
Don't
no
jump
no
on what
no.
I'm going
No,
to say
I
if you don't
don't
know. Don't jump on what I'm going to say when I'm not. That's not what I was saying. You made me go. So you tried to say I was going to go where I wasn't going. You need to listen to people. Let them finish.
We don't need to say that. This is not a health class. I don't need to explain to people that anabolic steroids have detrimental effects on your kidneys. I don't need to explain that it has detrimental effects on your emotional and mental state. I was a crazy person on steroids. I am fully aware of that.
Right.
You can talk to any of my friends. I'm still crazy, whatever.
Right.
But we're not talking about crazy, and we're not talking about dangerous. We're talking about gender identity and how steroids might affect it. Yeah, it could affect it, but I don't want to ever posit that someone who's transgender, who ever took testosterone, messed themselves up and caused themselves to become transgender. It's possible that they were always trans and just didn't know it until after they took steroids.
Right, and I agree with that. But we got to look at every angle.
We don't know. No, it's not another angle though, because that's not the argument. The argument is not, are steroids good? The argument is, do steroids cause people to be trans?
Right.
That's the argument.
And I think,
and I disagree with that argument.
Right, and I don't want to focus. I don't want to, with the time that we have, I don't want to dwell on any.
It's impossible. Anytime you have a heterosexual cisgender man in the room, they always go there. It's happened to me every time I've talked about this. Right. It makes me not want to talk about being a bodybuilder because it erases me as a butch lesbian.
Right. What do you think? So I appreciate you sharing that, and I can understand. I can feel and understand where your perspective is coming from on that one. Where do you see, like, as you are now as a butch lesbian and a comedian, where do you see yourself now in your personal development of self-love? And where do you see yourself going? Like where would you like to see yourself going moving forward as well?
I'd like to see myself. I'd like to, honestly, so I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do. I really want to get into voice acting, actually. Mm-hmm. But I have no experience and I have no training, so it'd be a whole new thing for me to start. I am studying screenwriting, so when I get my degree, I'm gonna hopefully get into production and screenwriting. In terms of being a comedian, I would love, I'd love to have specials. I'd love to be, famous for my comedy. But even if I'm just well known for my comedy in my area, that'd be fun. And I guess what I'd like to do is stand out, because there's a lot of butch lesbians in comedy already, it feels like, and it's like. And also, like, I feel like we have a lot of the same stories. I think that one thing I want to do is I want to really emphasize the importance of vulnerability, because even though I'm masculine presenting, I'm not a badass. I'm not tough. I'm not cool. I kind of want to subvert that stereotype that lesbians are all sexy and hot and they're all and they're badass and they can do anything. It's like, no, a lot of us are nerds, and we don't. We're socially awkward and we cry a lot, So I do want to work on, as a comedian, as a lesbian comedian, really really educate. Like I want to be that one butch lesbian that's gonna tell it like it is. Like, yeah, you can you can identify as bisexual and then come out as gay. You can identify as non-binary and find out you're cisgender. I want to show people what you're allowed to talk about, because I feel like that's been what my comedy's been already. Is people come up to me and they say, I didn't know I could talk about that, or I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know about that.
Real quickly, so I just want to put a cap on that. I'm going to hand this over to Mike. So it sounds like what you're saying in this particular segment, it sounds like what you're saying is to people out there that are questioning or who are in the process of self-identifying, that there's a wide range of emotions and things that can affect your perception, but it's important for you to be able to take the time, not allow external societal or individual influences from friends, family, whatever, to really affect you, but to really go deep within yourself and to find your own center, to find your own truth. Is that a good summary of what you're saying?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about it. No, you basically said it. And honestly, I'm sorry for yelling. I get very heated when it comes to transgender issues, even though I'm not transgender. I get heated about issues when it comes to women. I have a lot of defensiveness. Here's what I'll say though. Yeah, it's very simple. People like me, people who have full on transitioned and then detransitioned, like medically, like I've never done that, but like people who, like, we show you that it's okay to question things. It's okay to question your identity. I changed majors after 5 years of college, and then spent another 5 years doing a whole different major. So I changed it 7 years into college, and then changed majors anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is, if anything, you have to don't let people pressure you into transitioning. If someone says like, well, you dress really feminine, maybe you're a girl, like that's not a reason to transition. You know what I mean? So yes, or I feel really shitty getting off testosterone. Again, yeah, that's not a reason to transition. However, you gotta do it. You gotta do it like you said. It should be an expression of self-love, and you shouldn't worry about what other people say. So if people tell you, like me, someone tells me, oh, you're only gay because you took testosterone, that's their opinion. I disagree.
Nico, I'll say this, and then Mike, I'll let you do a follow up. Because the way I identify with this is my journey from thinking that I was straight to accepting my homosexuality to then living out loud as a gay man, as I do on stage and in my life. That was a very personal thing, and I lived that very closed off. I kept that very internalized, so I didn't have the judgments, or I didn't have the different aspersions that it sounds like you've gone through. And it's because I know that from I've known you, you've lived you've kind of lived this very openly. And so even some of the debates where me and you have been going at, kind of trying to dress down some of these people on Facebook that were saying, derogatory things, it sounds like you're still a little raw from that. It's kind of like the soldier coming off the battlefield, where it's like, okay, I'm through that now, but don't fuck with me in that regard. And Mike, I know you've gone through some, you're a cis man, and a straight man, but you've had a very, very challenging childhood and a lot of journey to become the person you are.
In defense of Nico, I'm fascinated with her, because
she's amazing.
This is what's cool about this, Nico. I think you're absolutely correct in the fact that more straight guys should listen to what you say, because we have no idea what you go through.
Right.
And I appreciate what you said. I mean, really, because
thank you. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Listen, I think you're terrific, because I'm completely ignorant to your lifestyle. And I think this is great. Like, it's the opposite of what I think you would think that I would say, because I really don't know. And I think your points are really valid. I think you're right in the sense that I don't think the drugs would affect your sexual choice or your gender or any of that, so it's interesting.
Right. So having that information, it can sometimes be a little scary, because then you think, well, then, what can be the consequences if you're quote unquote wrong, but really it's just not up to us if somebody else decides. But yeah, no, it does. Yeah. And in other words, I'm not trying to say that it doesn't affect sexuality and gender identity. I'm saying that until you're off drugs and you're going off just your body's natural hormones, you won't actually know. And then, if you do decide to overcorrect, let's say you get off testosterone, you get on estrogen, you can just create more problems for yourself. However, sometimes it works out. It's just one of those things where time tells. However, though, it is important not that important, but I think it's important that people know that a lot of people who have transitioned as children are happier than people who transitioned as adults. So
Really? I never knew that.
yes, statistically, it's been proven that it's not proven. It's been shown statistically that most children, if they have consistently indicated that they identify as the opposite gender that they were assigned, if you avoid puberty, so let's say you're born male and you have your son, and your son says, I'm a girl. Now let's say you wait till like they're in their teens. If you wait till they're in their teens and you start to introduce estrogen and all that stuff, yeah, there can be some, they're not going to grow very tall. There's going to be some effects that might concern you. But ultimately, there are trans women living today who are my age who you would never know they were ever born in a male body. You would never know because they started transitioning when they were children, and they don't even tell people they're trans, and nobody knows. They've had full-on surgery and everything. So I guess what I would say is, you have to, if you're a parent and you're dealing with anybody who's listening who's a parent who has a transgender child, just at least accept them as transgender and just leave it at that. If your child is identifying as the opposite gender as they were born, quote unquote, that you assigned to them when they were born, just let them explore, because that's what I did as an adult, and it didn't kill me. I didn't die. I didn't ruin my life. It's okay. Like, I would just say, of course, really make sure they go to a psychologist before you talk about actually getting them on drugs, because those drugs are scary. Even if I have a friend who transitioned at 22, and she always says, she's like, I wish I'd done it when I was younger. And hearing testimonies like that makes me think that, yeah, it's a gamble. Sometimes I do think that, yeah, don't trust your kids all the time, but definitely try to trust them when they talk about their identity.
In other words, give them the space to find who they are, and
they
give them the
will, and they won't let.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, do you have any? Do you have a question?
Oh, I can speak now. That's beautiful.
I was waiting. I was waiting for you.
I'm gonna tell you what. This is what set me off, Ron. I'm gonna tell you what set me off. And it's nothing against Nico. Everybody's got their story. I think your story is great. I think it's beautiful. But when you come on and say, let Ron run the interview, and you got 3 people doing this, that's going to set me off. That's going to upset me. Okay? Because now you're like, well, I don't care what your other 2 got to say. I want Ron running this shit. Secondly, you said what I was going to tell you about steroids and that you should wean off them before you make any decision. That's all I was going to say.
Oh,
but
great.
I felt like you were judging me because from past experiences, whatever people said to you, you thought I was that same dude. I'm not that dude. I'm a motherfucking black man in America. I go through racism and prejudice all the time, every day, in show business, in my life, from when I was 5 years old till now. I understand your struggle. I understand what you're going through. You need to understand that. Let me finish.
Sorry.
I'm listening to you for 45 minutes. Let me finish. So I understand your struggle. I understand trying to figure out who you are, where you fit, and what's going on in your life. I get all that. But I think sometimes you gotta let somebody speak and listen and let them finish and listen what they gotta say and see where their heart's at before you make a judgment on them. And that's how I felt. That's why I was pissed off.
Oh, that's totally fair. No, I'm sorry. And I will say, like, I was rude. But also, I don't really think that I've been struggling because of my identity. Like, I have to be honest. I don't think I struggle. Like, I have to be honest. Like, I kind of get uncomfortable when people, like, I feel bad when people think that my life is harder than it is. Like, ultimately, all I've had to go through is internal stuff. I have, like, low self-esteem, and the only thing I've ever had to deal with was, like, misogyny and some transphobia. But then when I detransitioned and I started looking like this, I've actually gotten, at least in Los Angeles, and I don't know if it's because, like, I feel like white privilege kind of gives me, like, a blanket, like a buffer. So it doesn't matter that I'm butch. It doesn't matter that I'm gay. People just they like a masculine woman. I noticed. Like I'm a security guard, and they'll hire me, and they'll say, "Oh my God, you're gonna be so great. You're so nice. You're not aggressive, and you're not this, and you're not that, and we love your look, and like we're gonna put you right here." And it's like it's kind of like it's honestly sometimes it's kind of an advantage to look like a man but be a woman. In my case, at least.
Jeff, you have any follow-up to that?
I got nothing to say now.
Mike?
No, I'm fascinated with Nico. I'm fascinated with all of this. It's all new to me. This is great.
I really, and again, I'll say, I really didn't want to talk about steroids. I hate that topic because then it becomes about, oh, well, is it ethical to take steroids? And that's not, or, oh, does it have negative effects? Yes, we already know that. I get mad and heated when people try to latch onto a detail that has nothing to do with gender and sexual identity. I wanted to talk about like compulsory heteronormativity. Compulsory heterosexuality, and I want to talk about like the lesbian community and like I don't know.
Right, but
I didn't want to talk about steroids.
Right, but the point was it is important for people to get off them for a while before they make a decision. That's all. So that is a very
100% we agree on that.
But that's very important information for them to know, and that's why it was important to talk about that one part of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not come prepared for that topic, and that's my bad.
No problem. This is, again, this is a free-flowing discussion, and, emotions are healthy. So I don't have a problem with that. You touched on something, to try to get into another area. You touched on something that I'd like to add. What is your definition, and what is your perception of what white privilege is, and how does that help you? How does that, in a little bit more deeper of a fashion, how does that help you through all of what you've been through? And then I'll turn it over to either Mike or Jeff, whoever wants to jump in.
I'll say that I think that one of the fact that I don't think about being white is a privilege, and the fact that I didn't factor in being white into coming out is a privilege, because I know that in a lot of communities, coming out as gay is more dangerous, or it's more of a risk, or it's more, in other words, it was a risk for me to come out as gay because I was Christian. I was growing up Protestant. So being raised Protestant with a dad who used to be Catholic, that was the only risk I ran. Was like, oh, coming out as gay to my parents will cause them to, like, it's going to cause them, they're going to disown me because now I'm living in sin and I'm impure. But then when I realized that the church was accepting gay people, I was like, oh, so maybe my parents will let it go as long as they can see that the church is okay with it. So I came out to them and they didn't kick me out. They didn't disown me. They didn't like it. They said that I was lying. They said that I was just trying to jump on some trend. My parents were like, oh, you're not really gay. You just think it's cool to be gay right now. So you're trying to be gay. If that's the only risk I have, like, I don't know. But then I've also, maybe that has nothing to do with white privilege. I'm just saying that I feel like being white gives you the confidence to experiment, do weird things, try new things. Like, think about all the straight white male pop stars who they'll wear makeup or they'll get really femmed up and nobody blinks an eye. Nobody's like, maybe they'll say, oh, he's gay, or maybe they'll say some shit, but then they don't have to worry about backlash from their community, because their community is just, they'll just go with it. I don't know. I just feel like I have the freedom to try things. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about like lowering my status socially by being gay. I only have to worry about what my parents think because they're religious. But then ultimately they ended up letting it go. They ended up getting used to it.
What are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement and all the protests going on? And then please, Jeff or Mike, any questions, please.
My thoughts are that this is essential. I just feel like it's like overdue. But at the same time, I don't know. It's like the fact that we're all under lockdown makes it's like amplified, which I think I think that it's like, it's hard for me to speak on it because I don't want to speak out of turn, but like my feeling is anyone who's focusing on riots and looting is missing the point. I don't think that you have to, like, anytime there's a protest, there's looting and there's riots to some degree, right? But I feel like what they do is they focus on that, especially if it's this scale, right? So that for them to focus on that in the media and for everybody to be debating over whether or not that's okay or not is dumb, because yeah, we shouldn't be, I don't know, my friend Kim said it best. She was like, when they had the lockdown protests, people brought guns and no one said shit. Now we have peaceful protests for Black Lives Matter and for justice for George Floyd, and now everyone's like, well, there's looters, oh, there's rioting, it's not peaceful. And it's like, there's more people there, it starts peaceful. If anything happens, I'm not willing to jump to conclusions and assume that that's the protesters. So my feelings about the movement is people should not be worrying about how it's being done. It's that it needs to be done. And if it doesn't change anything, I'd be really sad. I'd be really disappointed. I hope it does change something. I haven't been to a protest, and I want to go to the LA Pride March, which is being made into a Black Lives Matter protest instead of just a pride parade. It's going to be more than a pride parade.
You know, just like it's more than a pride parade, this is more than just one man getting shot. This is about many men getting shot. It's about Philando Castillo. It's about Breonna Taylor. This is about George Floyd. It's about Emmett Till. It's about to reform criminal justice. It's about economic divide. It's about systemic racism, and that's what people are missing. It's about all of those things, and people need to understand about the plight of Black people and what's been going on for 400 years. And when they understand that, then they understand what these marches are about. They understand what the looting's about. You know, they'll understand what's really going on. But until they know our journey, just like gay people want us to know their journey, people really need to understand the Black people's journey. And then to understand what's going on with the riots and the looting and the marching. That it's not just about George Floyd, but it's about 400 years of George Floyd's.
100%. That makes, yeah, exactly.
You know, Jeff, we were over the past week, we've been having some pretty interesting conversations about the protests and everything along that line. How do you see this movement that's happening right now moving forward, and how do you think that the LGBTQ community can help move that forward?
What do I think?
Yeah.
Well, I think on the 14th, they're doing a good job with Black Lives Matter in the LGBT community, having a march in West Hollywood on the 14th. I think that's a great start. I think that'll start with dialogue, and I think they can help by voting, by being educated. I think they can help by being educated on why Black people feel the way that Black people feel. And I know, like in Black males and that are supposedly supposed to be anti-gay and that, but I'm a Black male. I'm not anti-gay.
No,
I'm not anti-gay. I have 4 gay cousins.
Shit, I asked my son 6 months ago if he was gay. I told him I'm okay with it. Shit.
And Ron, you and I fight online constantly.
Yeah. Jeff, what was that conversation like? Real quickly, Nico, I apologize. What was that conversation like?
No, I want to hear the conversation.
Oh no, because he got feminine qualities. He'd go on a date with a girl one time. They don't want to see him again.
Pretty.
Nico,
he's pretty.
And they don't want to see him again. But I'm like, women know. Women know if you straight or gay. So they probably went out with him one time and said, nah, he ain't straight. And so I asked him, I said, dude, I'm not, just let me know so I know what I'm dealing with. I don't care. I'm going to love you just as much if you straight or gay. I just want to know. And I don't want you to be lying to yourself. Because you will hurt a lot of people. Sweet. You will hurt a lot of people if you're lying to yourself.
He could be bisexual. I'm not saying he is, but he could be.
Oh, he said he's not gay. He lying.
Jeff, honestly, do you think he's gay or no?
I think he is.
You know what? You can just be
I've
like,
when you're at his gay,
when you're at his gay wedding, you can be like, I told you so. Like, but,
this is why I love it. This is the problem, though. This is the problem. His mom is very religious.
Oh, yeah.
And his stepdad's very religious. They do a religious show on Sundays. And
Oh,
so
no.
so he's not going to come out. He will not tell
No.
her. He will not, because she basically raised him.
Aw.
So he even if he was, it's going to take him a lot of therapy and to get over all the religious that's been beaten into him and his mom before he can realize, you know what, I'm gay or bisexual.
That's so beautiful that you say that, because like that is something. So like I know for sure, like you definitely know what I'm going through,
I
because
do.
like when it comes to being gay, at least, and I'm sure Ron can talk about that too. I never even thought about. Don't really know Ron's coming out story, but religion was a huge roadblock for me, because not only had my parents religious, but I had really adopted it. I absorbed it like a sponge in Sunday school. My sister didn't. My sister was an atheist before I was, but I don't even know if I identify as an atheist. I think I'm still like agnostic. But yeah. But anyway, that's a big factor.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I will, first of all, Jeff, that was, me and you have never even talked about that. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to jump in, and Nico, I'll pass this to you. My parents were very Southern Baptist, and because, there was that whole "you'll burn in hell" mindset from being gay. I struggled with my orientation. Even while I was sleeping with men, I would claim that I was straight. And I would manufacture these girls that I was dating, to prove they were my arm piece to make sure that everybody knew that I was straight, that kind of thing. And kind of like what Jeff was just saying there, I remember I'd lost contact with one of my closest friends from childhood, from back in Philly, my boy Terrell. And so when we reconnected, I was like, hey, Rel, I need to tell you, that I'm gay. And he goes, oh, really? He was like, oh, really? And nigga, did you know I'm black? He had that type of reaction because he knew the entire time from my childhood that I was gay. And so I definitely identify with everything that's being said there. And Nico, I don't know if you have anything to say, and Mike as well.
I was just gonna say, real quick, I'm just gonna say, I'm sorry. You told me to keep it light. You told me not to. I wasn't.
Who said to keep it light?
I feel so bad for getting mad.
I loved it. I loved it.
Who said keep it light? Did Ron say keep it light?
I did not.
No. He said do it do it in a comedic way. But all I did was start yelling.
Yeah, this is perfect. We'd like to go deep.
I just hope that listeners don't listen and be like, "Oh, it's a crazy bitch on here. I'm gonna turn it off."
No, what I was saying is that we like to have deep diving conversations.
Okay.
From a comedic perspective. That's
okay.
That's all I was saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
And Mike, you were about to jump in there?
Yeah, no, I grew up with 4 gay cousins, and I watched them get tormented. So it was the kind of thing when you grow up with that, you watch what they go through, it's bad. You
develop empathy, yeah.
You never get past that. It's hilarious too, because my brother and my cousin are homophobic, but my cousins were always gay from day one, and they think you can catch it like a cold. It's hilarious.
You can't catch it like a cold?
Yeah, like just homosexuality. You're just gonna catch it like a cold. It's
well,
like,
I thought
it doesn't really work that way.
Well, actually, right? Because being a lesbian is kind of like that, because a lot of women think that they all have a lesbian inside them and that they just have to keep it locked down. Like every woman does this. They're all like, "Oh, I'm probably bi. I'm bisexual," and then it's like, then they like won't even look at their own vagina. Like they're disgusted by their own vagina, and then you're like, "Okay, bitch, you're not gay." Then they're like, "Oh, I like when girls eat me out." Like, okay, if you close your eyes, you pretend that's a dude. So no, like you. That sounds mean, but like
that's hilarious.
The way I see it is like, you gotta go ahead and try it out. Girls are always encouraged to try it out, but when it ends up happening, it's most of them lean one way or the other, and they might be a little bit. They might have had fun with a girl once, but they usually end up, unless they identify as bisexual. I always say, like, if you have to ask if you're bisexual or not, you're probably not bisexual. You either know that you like both or you don't, and it's okay to have a preference. Lots of bisexual girls prefer dudes, and that's totally fine, because I get it. Girls are hard to date. So,
yeah,
they are.
That's how I know I'm gay, because I don't. I'll listen. I'll go through all of the drama just to be with a woman.
Guys, we're getting to the end of this thing, and first of all, I want to. I don't know how we got earlier on the path of this not being a group interview. So Jeff, however that came about, let me apologize, since we're across city here. I'm not going to be able to give you a hug and kiss you on that beautiful black head of yours. But he's also Jeff is also is our closer when it comes to summarizing and kind of winding things up. So Jeff, any final thoughts, any final questions? Then we'll pass it. Then Mike, you jump in, and then Nico, we'll close it out with you, Jeff.
I just want to thank you for clarifying that, Ron, because it let me go juice my greens and my ginger and my apple cider vinegar while the interview was going on, because I was pissed the fuck off.
My apologies again.
No problem, man. No problem. Hey, you're a great interview, dude. I have nothing to say. I think you on point. You know what's going on with your life. You figured it out. I think that's cool. Your journey will continue. And yeah, I'm like that. I'm a sensitive motherfucker. If I don't like something, I can't hold it in. I gotta let people know how I feel. So.
I appreciate that, Jeff. And for any straight men that are out there, Jeff is the perfect example of how you can be vulnerable and be strong in who you are and be able to express yourself. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that he's gay. That just means his son is possibly gay. And we're not going to talk about that right now.
Jeffrey gonna be mad when he hear this, right? Jeffrey gonna be like,
Jeffrey's gonna be pissed.
He's gonna be like, he outed me.
Well, now Jeffrey knows that it's okay for him to come out the closet, and it's all right, you know?
Oh no, his mom's gonna snap. If his mom sees it, she's gonna snap. It's gonna be hilarious.
That's hilarious. Michael, yeah, right. Michael, you're next, brother. What do you got?
It was a pleasure meeting you, Nico. I learned a lot from this. I had a great time with this whole thing.
Yeah. Nico,
Thanks for having me on.
Nico, do you have any final thoughts? Anything that you want people to take away from this?
Well, I like that this is a podcast about self-love, because I think that ultimately you do have to make decisions for yourself based on your love for yourself and as an act of love to yourself. So don't be afraid to try things out. Don't be afraid to try out different identities. And also, honestly, if you're not ready to come out, don't. If you don't want to, you will come out in your own time. Do everything in your own time.
Right. And Nico, personally, as I said, just as a friend of yours, and I've been able to get to know you even more through this interview, and I was deeply moved and by a lot of what you said. As well as like Mike and a lot of people that may watch this or listen to this, I learned a lot, and this is from somebody who likes to consider himself fairly educated in issues around the LGBTQ community. So thank you very much for sharing what you did. I know just from how you shared and watching you, that a lot of this is still very, you're still sensitive to a lot of areas, a lot of issues around this. And I hope that anyone who's listening to this can understand that that ignorance and the way that you talk to people can really deeply affect them in a negative way. And so
that's a good way of putting it,
space, and just giving people the space to be who they are, and not allow and to know that there's love. By the way, just like what Jeff was saying with his son, if his son is gay, and the being able to express, I will love you no matter what. That when I heard that from my mom, that was just one of the most powerful things that has ever happened to me in my life. And I never had the relationship that I wanted to with my father. He's passed now. But my father would be the equivalent to the mother, right? And so I just really want everyone to understand that unconditional love means you love the person for who they are, no matter what their journey is, and you're not going to try and change them for your own personal pleasure, whatever that may mean. Any final thoughts from anybody?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I rode the Peloton this morning before this, and now I'm fired up again. I'm gonna have to ride that motherfucker again. Goddamn it.
That's awesome.
Jesus, so sensitive.
He is. He's emotional today. I like that.
Dude, you know, I don't like being like, I don't like the bull. Somebody say some shit, I get pissed the fuck. You see me on stage, you know how I get.
Yeah,
Nico, where's Nico? Nico, what's funny is actually out of the three of us, I'm the nicest one, and all three of us are cunts. And Jeff is hilarious because people will go up
I
to
bet.
Jeff.
No, I like Jeff.
Let me finish. Like, we'll all be out, right? And I'll be like, hey, Jeff, this is Tom. And Jeff will look at me and he'll be like, oh, nigga, I ain't talking to Tom. Who the fuck is Tom? Just walk the fuck off, Tom. God, you just walk the fuck off. I ain't talking to your fucking ass. Get the fuck out of
My thing is, I hate. Listen, no offense to you guys, but I do not like being on a podcast with three men. That never works. If there's more than one man in the room, especially actually just man in general. Don't care if it's cis or trans. I always get afraid that I'm gonna. What's ironic is I'll talk over y'all before you guys can talk over me. That's what I tend to do, and it's a bad look. I got to work on that. But anytime I see if I'm outnumbered by men, I get really angry. So I know how Jeff feels, but it's like for different reasons. It's probably a little bit of like internalized. It's like I have like fragile femininity or something like that. Like I'm afraid that if I don't start yelling at people, that they're not going to listen to me. And it's
interesting.
Sorry about that.
I'll tell you what, Nico. First of all, I understand where you're coming from, and to me, the way it came off to me is that you're preemptively standing up for your rights and making sure.
I gotta work on it though. I gotta be more polite.
He gets it.
He
gets it. Exactly. He gets it.
Yeah. We all have it, and that's what that is what Jeff was trying to say earlier. But we all have our own issues that we're dealing with. So don't, there's nothing but love on this podcast, and I think that your story is a powerful one. I wish you all the success in everything that you're doing.
You too, Ron.
Thank you, and I want to just deeply, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time that you did today. To be able to have this discussion. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of And You Think You Got Problems.
And you think you got problems.
And you think you got problems.
By the way, we didn't ask. Nico, we didn't ask. Nico, do you have any problems that we're supposed to solve?
We worked this all out. She just told us everything we needed to know. It's good.
Okay. Mike Moritor, you just claimed that you're the nicest one between the three of us, which was a lie. I let you slide on that. Don't you prove otherwise right now.
I'm the nicest one, man. You're the middle, and Jeff's the worst. Oh, no, I could talk to Tom. Fuck Tom. Fuck that white motherfucker.
Jeff is very nice. I don't think Jeff's mean.
I like Nico, but I don't like Tom. I like Nico. I don't like motherfucking Tom. Get Tom.
I like Nico, but fuck Tom. Tom's an asshole.
Get Tom the fuck out of here. Get Tom the fuck out. We like Nico. Nico can come here, but get my gun, Mike. Get my gun. Fuck Tom. Fuck Tom.
Well,
you gotta do your best Paul Mooney accent, your Paul Mooney imitation. Oh, nigga, Tom people suck a dick. Tom,
come here.
Oh no. Oh, nigga, come on. Let's keep it real. You know that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I love you guys. I don't think I have any problems. I think you guys solved all my problems today.
You're
fantastic. Love you. You're fantastic.
Nico, you're probably one of the most educated out of all the interviews we've done so far. You've probably been the most informative, and
absolutely.
Wow, thanks.
Absolutely.
That's just fantastic. You did exactly what I wanted people to hear. So thank you very much.
I love you guys. I love you, Ron. Nice to meet you, Jeff. Nice to meet you, Mike.
Can't wait till we can start doing stand-up again, and I see you, Nico. You have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
There you go.